Hey everybody, this episode of Working Dog Radio is brought to you in part by our friends at Ray Allen Manufacturing. Everything you need for dogs, whether it's working dogs, pet dogs, sport, anything, rayallen.com, the best in the business. Check them out. We got a discount code, Working Dog Radio, for 10% off.
Another one of our favorite partnerships is with the one and only Dogtra. These guys are producing some amazing tools in the dog training world. Everything from e-collars, GPS tracking, ball training. If it's electronic and it goes on dogs, go to Dogtra. They're revolutionizing the way you communicate with your dog. Hit them up at dogtra.com. Use the discount code WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200.
The biggest and baddest conference in canine anywhere in the United States is HITS. Every year, each and every year, hundreds and hundreds of vendors, thousands of attendees, the best instructors around. It got moved because of COVID. It's going to be July 7th through the 9th in 2021. Check it out. HITS, letter K, number 9.net to get signed up. You can't go wrong. HITSK9.net. Let's see you there next year.
Yeah, speaking of some guys that are going to be there next year, the kinetic dog food guys. Fueling a working dog can be tough, but they need high quality food to give them the energy and the nutrients that they require for the work that we ask them to do. Kinetic dog food is a great balance of healthy meats and grains and is specifically made for working and sporting dogs. Be sure to hit them up at kineticdogfood.com.
Easily, hands down, the best product we've ever represented on this podcast is Quick Derm by Vet Care. Ted and I use it in the kennel on our dogs when they get goofy injuries, and ourselves when we also get goofy injuries. They have a discount code for us, 10WDR, for 10% off your first order. Check them out at vetcare.us.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Ted Summers from a wintry Tulsa, Oklahoma. And with me, as always, from Canton, Ohio, is Eric Stambro from Canton, Ohio. Eric, what's up?
Well, you probably can't see. There's a blizzard. We are in the middle of a first blizzard of the year.
Nope.
So yeah, I'm not going nowhere. Hence, hold on. Hence.
Oh yeah, I got mine too. So I got my fancy Working Dog Dry Goods cup.
Yeah, mine's nice. From the police department when I worked there. See that? Look at that.
Excellent. What do you got going on?
Handler school, same time as you. My guys are going to test the 8th of January, I think. I got to tell you, though, man, so I said on the last episode that I was switching two dogs that were trained for right-handed handlers. The new handlers are left-handed.
You told me about
the one of them's killing it. But he'd been on the road for like 3 years. He got a new handler. The other one, I don't know, man. It's not gelling, him and that kid, and I don't like it. I may end up swapping him out for a dog that's a little more green that I haven't really started obedience on, and then wait to see, because the agency got 2 dogs. Wait to see if the next one's a right-handed and flip him back. He's totally, the dog is starting to just stop working and stare at the kid because he's a green handler, bumblefucking the leash to begin with. But
he's not trying to bite him.
he has, but he's tried anyways. But the dog is, and he's super handler focused. So if things get weird, like he gets stressed out and things get weird, he just stops and he just looks at you like, oh, I'm done.
And then the handler looks at him, and they're both looking at each other like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. So the dog's either way, he's rocking the bite work because that doesn't matter. He's rocking the tracking. The obedience, actually, it's not too bad. It's the detection. Switching the direction and a couple other things. And I'm super frustrated because it's a really nice dog.
I got the handler school going on now with that kid from Indiana, Chris. And, he's part of that Central Indiana Canine Association group with Kyle. And his dog, and thankfully he was telling me, he was like, some of those dogs in this group have not a problem, but they just have to cap those dogs a lot. And his dog is no different. Jesus. Mm-hmm. And like we're pretty much the entire time he's here. He does not need any help biting people. And he is, we're working on control. Chris is already an experienced bomb handler. He switched sides. Now he's going to do narcotics and apprehension. So he's never handled a bite dog. or a tracking dog. So all that's new to him, but he's a great detection handler already. So I told him, I was like, I ain't worried about that shit. You're going to be able to certify. That's fine. That's a problem. It's no big deal. But, you know, we're working on tracking, and because he understands change of behavior, like the tracking has gone fairly quick. Like we're already aging at like 30 and 40 minutes now. So, I mean, he's rocking and rolling. So I think by he's actually going to come to our HRD in Muskogee, Oklahoma, in January. Which this will go up before that. It's kind of like his graduation week thing. So he's going to come and be there with me. But yeah, so it's going to be a good team. He's going to go back to Indiana and find shitheads and find drugs.
It's interesting how you put an experienced bomb handler. Like, oh shit, shit. Dude, real quick. When I was my rookie year, we had a guy on the police department. Was an old dude. They found a live grenade and he carried it back in his lap. He just fuck it, I'll take it. And he put it in his lap and drove back.
Dude, what?
Yeah, drove back to the headquarters.
What the fuck? He gets patrol car?
He in his nuts. He's just sitting in his lap.
That's where it belongs.
He gets there. They called a bomb squad. The bomb squad goes, "You did what?"
Yeah, like, get my face.
Where is it? Oh, it's here on my desk. Get it the fuck out of there. So he goes. He throws a bomb blanket on top of it, and that no one even knew we had. He found it in the back. Puts a bomb blanket on. And they're like, "Yeah, don't do that either. Now we have to move it." But anyways, that's my story of experienced bomb handler. So who do we got coming on today?
So we've wanted to do one of these for a while, and you know, it always pops up in like National Geographic and other places that are like wildlife conservation things, not in the United States because it's a different deal altogether. So we've had trouble finding somebody that can talk, one, intelligently about this stuff, and two, is able to talk about it because of kind of the sensitive nature of stuff that they do and who they deal with and having to deal with being an NGO over there and everything else. So tonight we have from Working Dogs for Conservation, Pete 𝗙𝗙 Pete, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I know you told me how to pronounce your name, but I'm sure
he's Ted. So
you crushed it. Yeah, we'll stick.
I'm used to yelling one or two syllable names at dogs. So when it's like,
perfect.
My bad. So how did we get to where we're at today? So explain to us a little bit what Working Dogs for Conservation is, and then kind of talk about how you got involved and how we got to this point.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us. We're a nonprofit organization. We work all over the world, and you know, for most of our history, we've done what we call now ecological monitoring. So using detection dogs to find mostly scat, you know, turds, and and that all of that grew out of when it became possible to get DNA from scat. And so then you could start identifying species and stuff like that. And now, you know, back when I started as a conservationist, we used to. It was expensive and it took a long time and it wasn't very reliable to identify scats to species because we would use stomach acid and chemistry and all sorts of stuff like that. And then DNA made it possible to do that with certainty, just to species back then. And nowadays we can tell species, individuals, what population they come from. We get hormones, we get all sorts of stuff from scat. Yeah, it's amazing. And, you know, the joke I always tell is that, you know, the value of a turd just keeps going up and up. And so everybody wants to use dogs to find more of those. So for 20 years, we've been doing that. We still do a lot of that. But as that, you know, we started with the easy targets like bear scat, you know, and you know, it's big, it's stinky, there's lots of it, it's easy to find, detection distances are long, and all of that. As we moved, as the field kind of developed, we started doing more and more difficult targets, and you know, layer onto this in the 2000s, the global trafficking of wildlife really kicked in. And a lot of that was driven by China, because China, there's huge demand for it there. But as China developed the middle class and people had lots of money, and China was doing international development all over the world, that's when it really started the ivory trade. But, you know, rhino horn, live animals, all sorts of other stuff, plants.
Oh, yeah. Tiger penis.
Everything, you name it.
Yes.
You name it. It all started going to Southeast Asia for you know, and that's a whole nother story, is how how all the uses diversified and everything. But for a number of years, we kind of resisted. We said, well, we're not a law enforcement organization. We don't do that. We don't have the authority to do that. And what we realized was a lot of law enforcement, they were slow to pick it up because wildlife targets are weird and they're variable and whatnot. So we finally we dipped a toe in the water in 2013, 2014 when we took some dogs to Zambia to train them on wire snares. And we had been doing lion, leopard, cheetah, wild dog work there. And our collaborator there it's an organization called Conservation 𝗖𝗢𝗨𝗥𝗦𝗘. Her name's Rachel McRobb. She's amazing. She said, "Look, this is great. It's great to have all this data, but we're in the middle of a snaring crisis, and everybody is they're stealing wire from solar panels, from electrical wires, whatever, to make snares. You think these dogs could find snares?" And Megan Parker, who's one of our founders, she said, let's try. And she's great. She's fearless. She'll try anything. And so we started training dogs on wire snares. And it turns out they can find them. And that was the beginning of the law enforcement project there. And it was the next year we took the first 2 conservation dogs into Zambia. And now we've got 14 dogs on the ground in Africa. And that program and lots of others, we're not the only ones doing this, obviously. And there are over 200 dogs in the hand network throughout Africa who are doing similar work, and it's all over the map. So we've got a lot of dogs who inspect vehicles, guns, ammunition, going into national parks, bushmeat, ivory, rhino horn, illegal timber, all sorts of stuff, coming out. And then we also do some work, we call it biosecurity and invasive species. So things like, invasive weeds, invasive ants, invasive fish in streams. We demonstrated that they can discriminate to species, fish in a free-flowing stream, stuff like that. So it's it has diversified a whole bunch, throughout the years. And what I often say is, the wildlife trafficking stuff it's a big deal. And we're making progress on limiting the ivory trade, but in fact, ivory is just one of literally hundreds of species that gets trafficked all over the world, even here in this country. So a lot of people think of it as stuff starts in Africa and it goes to Asia, but there's a lot of stuff that comes from this country and goes to Asia, and even gets trafficked within the United States. And a lot of it just happens right under our noses. So there's a lot of different work to do, and we're trying to ramp up and keep up with it. And we're involved now with law enforcement in 8 different countries and now 31 states here in the U.S.
Wow, who's running those dogs in the U.S.? Is it a law enforcement agency or is it a NGO?
It's state wildlife agencies.
Okay,
yeah,
state,
are the 31 states. Yeah. So, and those are mostly law enforcement.
Yeah, wildlife guys are not guys you want to mess with. Talk about unlimited jurisdiction. Them boys don't know what borders look like. How many fish
You're
you
exactly
got?
Right.
Yeah. Believe me, coming from Oklahoma, I don't hunt, but everyone around me does, and they're some of the most feared people in the state. They don't care about the FBI, but wildlife guys, yeah.
So I can tell that this interview is going to really piss me off, and then also, I'm going to feel really good about some things. So, not you really pissing me off, just the topic. So, couple questions I had real quick based on that.
Yeah.
One, wire snares, is that for elephants and rhinos, or what are they, or anything they're using them for?
Snares are indiscriminate. They'll catch whatever walks by. And so you're exactly right. They get lots of non-target stuff. So, Africa Africa has very high densities of ungulates, but everything really. And so, what snares are after, they're going for meat. They want to catch wildebeest or zebra or whatever and use it for bushmeat. But they catch carnivores, they catch elephants. You see elephants with short trunks. because their trunk will get caught in it.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's
Really?
awful. It's awful. Yeah. So and yeah, so it's a brutal, awful way to catch animals.
So when you were talking about using the dogs to find the scat, or you guys were doing the scat with the DNA, where are the labs that you send this stuff to? Does it come back here?
Well, yeah, most of it happens here. Although now more and more of it is happening in the countries where those species are. But most of it, happens here in the United States, and it varies by species. They're often universities, so we do a lot of kit fox work. San Joaquin kit fox is a little fox in the Central Valley of California on the endangered species list. All those scats go to the Smithsonian, and it just varies depending on who's working on that species. So some of it stays here in Montana, with the Forest Service, wherever the lab is, who's got the markers and all that stuff.
What have you got the price point down to now on a DNA test?
Again, it depends it varies by species, but it's always coming down, which is great. It depends what you want to know. You want to know just species, it can be, depending on what it is, it can be relatively cheap, under 30 or 40 bucks. But if you want to know which population they came from, or you want to get hormones or anything like that, then you're up, 70, 80, 100 or more per sample. And so, but that's a pretty good deal relative to having to catch an animal or even see them, So I should tell you guys straight away, I'm an ecologist. And I got into this work through the conservation side. So if you're looking for, deep dog training and knowledge, you got the wrong guy. So I'll defer to my staff and everybody on that stuff.
That's cool, because what we'll do with them, we'll ask you, how cool was that shit to see that dog find that stuff?
I love that. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. But the conservation side of this is the money, the cost of doing it keeps going down and down. But catching an animal, it's incredibly expensive and it's risky. And I often tell the story. So we were working on pronghorn antelope, which are they're out here in the West, and there's a migration that comes down out of Teton Park down in a place called Pinedale, and so we needed to know where they were going and mortality and all that sort of stuff. And it's super fun. You get in a helicopter and a guy with a net gun catches them. You jump out and you catch them. You put a GPS collar on them and all that. But we put out about 70 radio collars in 36 hours. It cost us over $200,000. And we got great data on 70 animals. Whereas you guys know how quickly and easily dogs can find anything but scats.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot more data a lot less expensively using dogs. And so nowadays, and especially when the economy is down or when money's tight, that's when people really want to use dogs.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because you'd have to be living not in the United States to know about everything that happened this summer and the current movement. And there's some stuff going on in the United States about getting rid of dogs and whatever else. And it's interesting because they're the only resource we have in law enforcement, conservation, search and rescue that has more than one purpose. And that is, recognized by courts and everything else. And, they're just not going to go away. Like there's the sky is falling,
Totally.
and people are always there, but they're not going away. Dogs are not going to go away. Drugs are not going to drugs are not going to overnight become legal. Well, one might. And the rest of the other three are not, though. Those are going to be illegal forever. And then, there's never going to be a time where you can get tiger penis legally in the United States.
Right.
So, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that once already, but I don't, I'm sure there's something you shouldn't have it. But, so as you guys started, you got 14 on the ground in Africa. Now, what breeds primarily are you guys using there?
A lot of mals in Africa right now.
Yeah.
Mals, shepherds, a few mutts. So we're a little bit different in that we rescue the dogs we train. And that came about for historical sort of reasons, which I'm sure you guys lived through as well, which was after, Iraq and Afghanistan and the shortage of detection dogs, price went through the roof. And we were a very small organization back then. And we didn't, our budgets were very small. And so we said, let's see if we can rescue a few of these dogs. And then also, with Eastern European breeders and a lot of them breeding every dog they can get their hands on and stuff like that, we didn't want to be part of, we do a few dogs a year. We're not like the military or police. So none of those big reputable vendors, they don't have time for a small organization like us. We had 6 active dogs when I started 8 years ago. We're 44 now over, overall. But that's not, relative to those military vendors who are doing 200 dogs or whatever.
Right.
We're not, so we're not first in line for the good reputable sort of kennels. And at the same time, a lot of the dogs we select for ball drive, toy drive. And as we've gotten bigger, we're able to be a lot more flexible in terms of things like, nerve strength and obedience and impulse control and stuff like that, because we've diversified the kind of work that we do. So we do some discrimination work and some, and even through a dog's career, as they get older, we're able to keep dogs working until they're 13. We've got lots of dogs that have worked past their 13th birthday. They're not doing big, mountains and Wolverine work or jumping over logs. They're doing flatland and discrimination and stuff like that. But as you guys know better than I do, those dogs are they're good at problem solving. They're really experienced.
Oh yeah.
And so they're super valuable at that age. So, it has varied throughout. But for a while, our most common dog in the kennel was a mutt. But I think we're now more mals than mutts. 3 of the 4 dogs that are in Serengeti are mals. We've got, 2 shepherds and 2 mutts in Zambia. It just varies. It's all over the world, depending on what they need and who's doing what.
It's interesting you mentioned that. When we had on some search and rescue handlers, we had Jake on, the search and rescue, the avalanche guy. A friend of ours who was at HRD in Salt Lake City, a great dude. He talked about, different breeds working, search and rescue work, and non-normal stuff. And we talked about it then, and we can talk about it now too, because I had a conversation with a department in Kansas today who was used to doing business one way, and they can't do that now. Most of it is because of COVID. But, about the same time you guys got started, we had a lot of problems in the United States getting access to quality dogs because we were fighting the South Africans, we're fighting the Australians,
Right.
we're fighting the Chinese, we're fighting Northern Europeans, we're fighting everybody for access to the same pool of dogs.
Exactly.
And police departments across the country, if you're an admin listening to this, if you haven't raised your prices since 2000, that's why you're getting shit. So, everybody, I don't blame them. It's a business decision. What do you expect? You're like, oh, our last dog. I'm like, yeah, he was 14 when he fucking died. And Clinton was in office when you decided to get him. So things have changed since then. So
right.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because it's a similar deal. So, when you start talking about mount, are you guys doing single purpose work only, or do you have any apprehension dogs?
We don't do any apprehension.
Okay. So,
just
detection.
Just detection and tracking. So there's some interesting new technology that helps in Africa a lot, and that's really cool. The thing about apprehension in Africa in particular is, and this could change with the new technology, but historically, in Africa, what happens is somebody hears a shot in the middle of the night, and then they go out and they try to find, tracks or a carcass or whatever. And then they put the dog out at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning, and then it's hotter than Hades, and the dog is heat exhausted, and and if you're lucky, the dog will track to the place where the poacher got in a vehicle and left. And so for a long time, we just said that's there are very few. You meet a lot of ex-military and people in Africa who they'll train bite dogs, and that dog might get 2 bites in its whole career. Just because it's a weird, different game.
Yeah.
So,
especially on the conservation side where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think our world is a little bit different. And I should say there are two kinds of landscapes in Africa where you have rhinos and where you don't. And where you have rhinos, it's a war zone. And that's not hyperbole. It really is. Kruger National Park, poachers shoot back. at dogs or at people. They use helicopters. They're dropping dogs and rangers out of helicopters. It's full on sort of warfare. And then in the rest of the continent, particularly where you don't have rhinos, it's much more like game work here. Arrests tend to be a pretty polite affair, right? So our dogs, and well, let me back up. There are these new cameras. You guys know what game cams or trail cams or camera traps are. Every deer hunter all over the country uses them and all that. So there's for a long time, these game cameras, poachers would see them and they'd smash it or rip it out or take it or do whatever to it. So they started making them and putting the guts of it underground, and then just all that comes up is a wire and the sensor, and some of them have an infrared flash with it. So they're very hard to see. And then they started building them with so the infrared flash, you can't see the flash, and it's taking pictures even in total darkness. And so then they got the idea let's wire in a cell phone or a sat phone into this thing, so that when it takes a picture, it can send it to the anti-poaching warden or the head of the dog unit or whoever, which was pretty cool. But this is Africa, so on any given night you'll have 100 impala, maybe baboons, maybe elephants. Everything's walking by that thing all night long. Very quickly, those guys, they turn off their phone, they go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So enter 2017. We're taking 4 dogs to Serengeti. We get on the ground. It's a logistical crazy to get 4 dogs, down into Serengeti. We get them across, we get them flown in, everything. And I walk into the mess in the 𝗔𝗡𝗄𝗄 Reserve, and here is this guy that I used to work with, who literally is a rocket scientist. And I used to work with in New York, and he's got this camera trap taken apart all over the table. And I say, Steve, what are you doing? And he looks at me and he says, what the hell are you doing here? So we get to talking. He's created an artificial intelligence chip. Intel made a very low power chip that they can put in these camera traps that will interpret the image. So it only emails when it sees a person. So they put them inside the reserve boundary where it's not legal to be on foot. And so every time it sees a person, it texts the head of the anti-poaching unit and the head of the dog unit. And shit. So we had just trained these 4 dogs on detection, and here we land on the ground, and he tells me about these cameras, and I look at my colleagues who we were with, who had just trained these dogs on detection, and I said, what do you think about tracking? So we started the dogs on tracking, and now 3 of those 4 dogs are tracking dogs, and they started them on, they were just doing little short tracks, 100 meter, straight, fresh tracks. And they were doing well, and they got a call, comes in one of the nights, and they said, we've got somebody on the things. Can we take the dogs? And I said, hey, up to you guys, you make the decision. And they said, well, let's try it. So 2 dogs went out on the track. Long story short, 14 kilometers later, and they had traded off during the track. They did 2 handoffs during the track. They captured 6 guys with over 200 snares and 960 pounds of bushmeat.
Jeez,
this was their very first night out. So these new cameras, they're in development. Every anti-poaching unit in Africa wants them, but they're hugely valuable. And, they're more valuable with dogs, and the dogs are more valuable with these cameras, because that's a slam dunk. If you or I goes out there, we can visually try to track in the middle of the night where there are lions and leopards and stuff like that. But all the guy's got to do is go down an aardvark hole or step in the bush or whatever, and we lose them.
And it's interesting.
Fish in a barrel for the dogs.
It's interesting you say that, because you said a phrase that piqued my interest, and you said, "This is Africa." TIA. One of my very good friends that lives here in Tulsa is actually a Russian immigrant, and he runs an NGO that's involved in stopping human trafficking in Uganda. And it's one of the few NGOs that's not responsible for prevention or aftercare. They do direct action, and they are
paired with law enforcement and military while they're there. And a lot of the stories you're talking about, the way that they combat things, is very, very similar with how they catch these witch doctors. So, like, real short, what they do is they kidnap kids, and they cut their heads, their hands, and their feet and their genitals off, as witch doctors to bless land. And it's gnarly. And we talk about the human trafficking, and we think about it here as like human trafficking for prostitution or whatever else, but there, I mean, it's a totally different deal. But it's a different setup for them because it's an actual law enforcement thing. But that phrase, "this is Africa," like even the Africans say it. They say like, oh, like you'll walk over, I mean, there'll be something dead laying in the street, they're like, "Oh, this is Africa," and you're like, "Well, fuck, I mean, it's the second largest."
We don't see that.
No, I mean, they're like, "Oh, it's Africa." That's their excuse for everything. And it's interesting you say that. The other portion of your comment that was interesting, talking about dudes tracking and going around and finding guys at night, and how dogs tend to speed things up. One interview after this is a friend of mine, also from the same sheriff's office here, that we're going to do. Mick Bonet is one of the best tracking guys in the country about finding human beings, not with a dog. But you're right. Using a dog with technology is probably one of the fastest ways to hunt somebody down, like in real time. And it's crazy. And I can't imagine how valuable those cameras are for all over the continent. I mean, that's insane that they're able to do that. I mean, especially in fucking Africa. I mean, they don't have cell towers out there. And so, I mean, it's not like they got the fucking internet web. They don't have it set up so that they can, text. So that's an inventive,
it's cool.
It's an really inventive solution to that. So what was, so that night you guys had that find, so they had 900 snares and a shit ton of bush meat and everything else.
Yeah.
What was the reaction to the addition of the dogs? I mean, obviously it's like a make or break situation, right? They're like, okay, well, these dogs are going to track or they're not. And all of a sudden they come up with, fucking aces. And like, holy shit, we need more dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it was awesome. It was just great. And when my buddy Steve was telling me about the cameras he's putting out, we went out. He said, "Yeah, go try to find one." And they took me, and there's one installed right there. And I'm walking around and I'm looking for it, and I know it's there. I know it's there. And Grant Burden, the guy who was our collaborator there, his phone's going ping, 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 and I said, "What's going on?" He says,
"I'm getting pictures of you, bro."
I'm getting pictures of you. Yeah. So I'm walking. He's got all these funny pictures of me looking around doing this, and you just roll the thing in elephant dung or soil, you can't see it at all. So it's amazing, and that's really cool because the poachers, the guys, as they enter the reserve, they don't know where they're getting picked up. They don't know where they're triggering the cameras. So some of them, they think it's witchcraft. They think, who are these dogs? How did they know that I was here?
They live in fucking mud huts. I mean,
and that's great. Yeah, and it's fabulous. And
I would prefer
they're
that.
onto it. Even if they know the cameras are there, they can't find them. They can't find them all, and there'll be lots of them there. But back to something earlier that you said, I always laugh because you were talking about dogs being the most effective and the most flexible and all those things. I'm 100% with you, and I always laugh because we've got dogs doing some disease work and even COVID now and all of that work, and even the detection stuff. Everybody often, they see what a dog can do, and then they say, well, now we're going to build a gadget that's going to do the same thing. And I always just laugh and I say, why do you want to do that? Because the gadget's super expensive. You spend a ton of money to parameterize the thing, and whether it's a chemical signal or an infrared, like FLIR, drones, or any of that stuff. And I say, I've made lots of bets, bottles of whiskey, for if you can find more mountain lions or more zebra mussels or quagga mussels or whatever, then my dog I'll buy you the nicest bottle of whiskey you can find. And if you can switch to a new scent before the dogs can, I'll double it. And it just doesn't exist. But it's funny. People kind of think a gadget's going to do it.
No, one of our buddies is a dog handler in a special forces or in a special operations unit in the military. And they obviously have air assets that are real time. and routinely he'll have satellite communications with these people, and they're like, somebody is, right here, this far away. And he'll be like, look, I'm telling you, the dog is, I sent the damn dog over there, and there is fuck, and his exact words was like, there is fuck all over there. There is no, they're like, we just saw him. And his response is, I don't care. I'm telling you, the dog was over there. And if he was there, he would have bit him. And there is nothing there. And when we were doing an HRD somewhere with a state agency, they were telling us about how a $15 million helicopter couldn't find somebody to bring the dog in. And 20 minutes later, they smoke a dude in the swamp. And they're like, oh, we couldn't see him because he was covered in mud. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Ask the Pentagon how much money they've spent trying to come up with machines to do what the dogs do.
There was that article in New York or something. It was like $4 billion. It was, I don't know. It was a lot. It was a shit ton of money. It was in Washington Post, or I don't remember what it was, but it was a large number. So
you guys need to buy for them those. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have colleagues who make the same T-shirts that say "Trust the nose."
Oh yeah. Trust your dog. Yeah, and Eric and I yell at our handlers all the time. When dogs do shit that they're like, oh, I don't know why he's doing that. And I'm like, well, I do.
Just on tracking.
Exactly.
So I got a couple questions for you real quick before we take our break, because I've got there's so much stuff we can get into.
Yeah.
We try not to do 3-hour podcasts, so we're trying to cram as much as we can.
Until you're Joe Rogan, then you can.
Yeah. I love Joe, but
I am not.
Nobody's looking at us two for 3 hours. So
no.
When we're talking about the importance of getting to get that image at night and track with the dogs, especially at night, what's the temperature difference?
Oh, that's interesting. It's a visual image because it's infrared. So the infrared flash, so you're getting a visual, it's interpreting a visual. It's not a thermal signature.
No, I mean the difference for the dog working. What's the nighttime temperature in Africa versus trying to track that dude at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Oh yeah. It's relatively, it depends, it varies from place to place, but in a place like Serengeti, it's relatively dry environment. So it'll go down to the 60s or low 70s at night.
Perfect.
Sometimes in the 50s. Yeah. So it's okay. It's actually a nice time to be working with the dogs. You don't have the heat issues that you do during the day. But during the day, it's tough.
Oh, I can't imagine. Even Ohio gets, you in the summer. We have a nice summer where he's at in Tulsa is a blast furnace.
We call it Africa hot. It gets fucking hot here.
It's sticky, wet hot. Yeah.
Tulsa is humid as shit. Yeah. I've talked to some border patrol handlers too that are down there in El Paso and the Arizona border, and they're like, oh yeah, the dogs will track in 125 degree heat. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, for 5 minutes.
Well, and
they're breathing beings. But so another question I have for you is, where do the handlers come from? Who do we have handling the dogs?
Well, so that's a great question. We originally, back in the day, we used to do all these projects ourselves. So we would have our own handlers go out and do them. And the Snare project in Zambia in 2014 was the first time we pivoted. We started saying we're going to build capacity, because it was ridiculous. We'd spend literally tens of thousands of dollars to get those dogs over there from here. And we said, they're here for 5 or 6 weeks. Law enforcement's 24/7, 365. So, it's only a little bit more to build a kennel and have them here and do it all the time. So we recruited existing game scouts to do it.
Okay.
And we start with a pool of about 20 guys, and they narrow it down to 6 or 8. And I will tell you what, this is not, I'm not qualified to say this, but the folks who've trained them and the folks who certify them, those guys are some of the best handlers that they've seen anywhere.
I believe that.
They have self-selected, and a lot of them, they don't have dog experience. They're a blank slate, so they didn't grow up, with lots of strange ideas about dogs and how they work and how to treat them and all that stuff. And they're awesome. And
that's why women are so much easier to teach how to shoot a gun. That's true. Don't shoot the messenger. Every shooting instructor. That's not me. I don't teach people to shoot. I know how to. I don't do it. But that's the truth. I mean, because as kids, as men, we're like, oh, bang, 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 and we all have the fucking bad habits from the time that we're 4 years old. Exactly.
Yeah.
Fucking shoot
the elbow out.
Yeah.
Exactly. So perfect. That makes 100% sense.
My last question before the break is, I can't tell if it's at Ted's house or your house, but do I hear a dog behind you? You have a
Sorry,
dog?
yeah, there was
No.
one, and
Did
No.
they
he's gone
talk you
now.
into a Malinois? Did they sucker you into that yet?
No, I don't have a Mal.
No,
I
don't
don't.
do
I have
it.
my
Don't.
own dogs, are a bird dog, my dog, because I, like I said, I'm not a handler, but I am a bird hunter, so I have a bird dog, a �𝗙𝗏, and we have a wiener dog in the house. So that's him. That was him. He came.
All right, we're gonna hang up now. We're gonna.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I know. But hey, I'll tell you what, he's 13 years old. He's kind of deaf, a little bit blind, but he is as driven as the bird dog.
All right, that's awesome. We're gonna go ahead and take a break here. Don't scroll through the messages or through the advertisers, guys. You're gonna miss all the discount codes and everything. For those of you on Patreon, they're gonna get this commercial free. You're just gonna have to put up with about 5 seconds of Ted and I staring at each other like a bunch of weirdos. So
We got to put Easter eggs in this and just doing weird shit. So
right, we'll be right back. All right, guys. One of our best sponsors, one of our oldest sponsors, are the Perkinsons down in Harmony, North Carolina, at Highland Canine. We have a ton of people going down there for their handler schools, their trainer schools, their full-on dog training schools where you learn police dogs, pet dogs, all aspects of it. They have amazing dogs for sale, classes for police, classes for police supervisors, pretty much a full gamut of anything you need in the dog world. Highland Canine definitely is the place to go. Check it out. I can't tell you enough about how great these people are. Everybody I know that's been there for their training say it is no joke. Check them out. tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com. Get your butt down there in North Carolina, man, and learn.
Speaking of full service, it's no secret that we love the guys up in Colorado Springs at Ray Allen Canine Equipment. We use their products every single day. Their mission statement says it all: to be a world leader in the quality and innovation of professional canine equipment for police, military, Schutzen, ring sport, to exceed our customers' expectations, to deliver on time, every time, at a fair price. We full-heartedly believe that they are true to that statement. Since it's our go-to one-stop shop for everything canine, they literally have everything there except the damn dog. You can get in the car, but they have inserts, they have hot poppers, they have e-collars, they have leashes, they have regular collars, harnesses, they have muzzles, they have some of the working dog dragons muzzles that end up starting their life in my living room. So be sure to check them out, rayallen.com, and use the discount code Working Dog Radio, written all the way out, for 10% off.
We really are so lucky and happy to be partners with the guys down at Kinetic Dog Food. The stuff that those guys are doing, man, it's so good. The ingredients that they have, we had them on a podcast. It was eye-opening. Listen to them talk about the goofy stuff that goes into dog foods and in the business. They are honest. They are great people. Kinetic Dog Food. They will drop ship you a pallet if that's your thing. If you got that many dogs, they'll drop ship you a pallet anywhere you need it. KineticDogFood.com, best in the industry, and definitely a personal favorite of Working Dog Radio. KineticDogFood.com.
Yeah, and if you're out on the east side of the country, be sure to hit up Southern Coast Canine. They're a reputable canine kennel that does dog sales and training services, located in sunny New Smyrna, Florida. Southern Coast Canine provides services worldwide, from purchasing your next single or dual purpose working dog to handler courses and seminars. Southern Coast is a great resource to check them out. You know, the Heisers run a great ship down there, and obviously the weather's nice. So if you live in a part of the country where it sucks half the time, the year weather-wise, that's where you go in the wintertime. That's how you get your admin, send them down, get them to send you down there in the wintertime when it's nice and sunny. They do a fantastic job with trainers courses, decoy schools, and handler courses for green dogs and finished dogs and retreads too. So be sure to hit them up at Southern Coast Canine, that's letter K number 9.com, and get scheduled, or go find you a dog.
Dogtra. We post on our social media all the time, Ted and I using Dogtra. I love everything about them. I think the Dogtra 1900S is the gold standard for police canine. It is a perfect collar. The remote size is perfect. You can do the hands-free device if you want. Their ball popper, their Dogtra YS 600 bark collar. I've got a drawer full of those at the kennel. I want my place nice and quiet. The bark collars solve a lot of the thrashing in cars. If you got that dog that spins up at training in the back of the car, get yourself a Dogtra YS600 collar. One of our biggest sponsors, one of our biggest friends, big supporters of the podcast, dogtra.com. They do have a discount code too for us, is WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200. Don't mess around. Don't wait. Dogtra.com. All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio. We are with our friend Pete Lilo, whatever. Either way, he's been called everything. From Working Dogs for Conservation. I love this episode already. There's just there's so much I want to get into, but talk about when you're working with the handlers there. What's language barrier? Are you fluent? You have to, or they teach English in school over there? How does it go?
Yeah, so in Zambia, they're the handlers. We and they work in English, and they're mostly it's fine. Every now and then you need a little bit of translation. In Tanzania, it's a little different. Tanzania, English isn't as prevalent. And so when we did the first school there, and started with a group of 20 handlers and got it down to the 4 full-time handlers and 2 backup handlers, I was there for the school, and I worked in East Africa for 17 years, so I was the translator for it. And only the head of the unit speaks fluent enough English to sort of translate. Everybody else are just Swahili speakers. And in 2007, Tanzania passed a law that made it possible for villages and village governments to designate their own game scouts. And the logical people to do that are the guys who were out poaching. These are the guys who are comfortable in the bush and who know what poachers do. So, and a lot of those guys don't have even secondary school, high school education. So English is a bit of a barrier. So now, we use a translator in Tanzania, and like a lot of the guys, they're conversant in the English of handling. But as you guys know, it gets deeper and deeper, and the more involved it gets, the more complex the conversation gets. So it's there's always a translator on hand in Tanzania.
How many African cuss words do you know?
Plenty.
Yeah, of course. Everybody.
Yeah.
That's some don't even translate.
There are some quite humorous ones that are quite close to other words. And, there are a few good stories.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, spinning back to dogs, you talk about now that you guys are made the decision to do everything over there. Are your trainers African guys? Do you have Americans, British? Do you have a mixture? Who's training the dogs?
Well, no, primarily, we still get the dogs here. There isn't a great source of dogs in Africa. South Africa is breeding their own now, but there's a lot of demand for them down there, and there's a lot of capacity. And we say, do your thing down there. So it's still more efficient for us to source dogs here in this country, do the base training, get them trained up as a detection dog here, and then take them there. And then we spend about 8 weeks on the ground, making a transition. I'm sure this is something you guys have done over and over again, installing the dogs and getting the handlers. And now the handlers in Africa are there. They can add new scents. They're not really handlers anymore. They're trainers themselves. And so they're moving on in that regard. We're going to add 2 dogs to Zambia this year. We had one older dog who passed on, and one a shepherd who's developed some leg problems, and so we'll replace him. And we'll those guys are they're so dedicated, and they're into it. So we work with ASCT, if you guys know Chris Aycock and American Society of Canine Trainers, and Chris was really flexible, and he said, "Hey, we'll help you develop a conservation certification." And now there are more certified trainers in Africa than there are here in North America, partly because partly because there's so many different certifications here that they're all, every agency and police department has to do their own. But those guys, they're great, and they take on more and more, and it's great for us to be able to help them. Originally they were sort of, can we do this at the very basic level, and now it's really cool to go back to Tanzania and to tell the guys, hey, we work with all these state agencies, and they're thrilled. They think you guys are doing great stuff, and you can see the guys say, really, we're on par with that sort of international level, and it's really great for their morale and their motivation and their desire to keep learning and all of that. So it's a cool process.
So we talked about the one, like the first night they had like the 900 snare catch and whatever else. Are there any other situations where it was literally like a holy shit, had the dog not been there, like dudes would have gotten away, or you wouldn't have found something, or that led to a significant direction change in an investigation or something like that?
Oh yeah, I mean that happens all the time, because it's such a well, back to your point about human trafficking and all that stuff. One of the reasons that the U.S. government and others are really more disposed to supporting this kind of work is because a lot of the nasty folks who are trafficking in drugs or ammunition or guns or whatever, or even human trafficking. I mean, you guys know this far better than I do because you're law enforcement. They don't do just one bad thing, right? Wherever there's money to be made, they'll mess with it, right?
No, shitheads are shitheads, no matter where you're at. So
right, and wildlife is in many countries considered a trifling or a less severe crime. So it's a useful way to gain intelligence on, a wildlife trafficking network may also be trafficking lots of other stuff. So
right.
it's a way for them to infiltrate those sorts of things. So that's part of the reason that there are breakthroughs, because they think, well, there's money to be made in ivory, I'll do that for a little while. But we had a funny situation. Ruger was a dog that was rescued from the Blackfeet Reservation here in Montana. He's a lab shepherd mix, and he was a tough dog. He was had an abusive early life, and wouldn't let the vets get near him, anything. But he trained here in Montana, started to lose his vision. What is it called? Retinal myopathy? Is that what the labs get? And so starts to lose his vision. And while he's training here in Montana, and I said to Meg Parker, well, let's find him a nice ranch to go to and live out the rest of his days. And she said, hey, you got to see this dog work. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Nobody the vets can't get close to this dog. He only lets one or two people handle him. He's grumpy as hell. And now he's losing his vision. You want to keep training him? She said, yeah, let's keep training him. I said, okay. So she keeps training him, and he goes to Zambia, and a lot of the young dogs, they're wildlife around, they're birds, they're all these different smells. And Ruger, he's just like, he's only business. He's just a machine, So he would work roadblocks, and it's a very controlled environment, and he's doing the cars and everything. And he hits, the little buses they have there, like in Latin America, they call them the chicken buses. They're overloaded. They got lots of people in them and stuff and everything. Well, he's doing a roadblock, and he comes around the back of this little bus, and it's got all the door is open, and there's rope, and there, luggage and stuff tied on the back of this little minivan, and he alerts at the back. So they say, can we pull these things down? They lay them out, everything. They're looking. They don't see any ivory. They don't see pronghorn, whatever, but they're looking. And so they lay out the suitcases in the back. Meanwhile, all the people are off, get off the van, 20 some people. They're next to the side of the road. And it's like Africa. Anytime something weird starts to happen, people just come out of nowhere and everybody's watching. So there's a big gallery of people watching this whole thing.
This is Africa.
This is Africa. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the excuse for everything.
So they line up all the suitcases. He alerts on a suitcase, just a regular old suitcase, right? And the guys are thinking, oh man, what's going on here? Is there food in there? Is this a false alert? What? They're a little worried. So they open the suitcase, they pull out all the clothes. They can't find anything. So they lay the clothes out in a line. He alerts on a pair of pants. And the pair of pants in a pocket,
No way.
in a plastic bag,
No way.
in a matchbox, inside, wrapped in plastic, inside this matchbox is a single primer cap for a muzzle loader.
Wow.
So all these people, the best part about this whole thing was there are all these people from the bus, they're watching this whole thing happen. And then the guy whose suitcase and pants it was, runs off and runs for it.
Right. Well,
those aren't his pants.
The fuck you need? Yeah, that is the number one excuse everybody uses. That's not my pants. But what the fuck does he need a muzzle loader primer for?
Yeah, well, exactly. And and these muzzle loaders, these are awful things. They're made from the steering rod of a Land Rover, and they'll put gravel and bits of rebar and stuff, and then they'll gut shoot an elephant and then track it for days until it finally dies, and then they'll take the ivory. So it's awful.
Damn,
it's an awful thing.
What the fuck?
But the amazing thing about this was everybody watched it. Everybody was there on the side of the road. So for years after that, you could walk into a village in southern Zambia and walk into a village. If you had a black dog, they would say, "Is that Ruger?"
Really?
No way.
Everybody knew who Ruger was. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yes.
So, the deterrence value was spectacular. It was just amazing.
Oh man! And anytime they bring a dog out, granted, this is Africa, so not the United States, but anytime they bring a dog out, they're like, "Ah, shit!" And like you said, it's like witch doctor stuff, or it's it's magic. They don't understand how it works, so they think dogs do dog shit. They just dogs do dog things. So, oh man,
that's right.
That's fantastic. That is perfect.
It was great. It was great. And that's true. They believe it. And so it does work,
We were just, Ted and I were messaging here on the thing. We're talking about working the dogs, like them sniffing the vehicles during the training, all that. What do they work for? Are they toy reward dogs or food, or what do they get?
Toy rewards. Yeah.
Awesome.
Almost all toy rewards. Occasionally we'll use food. Right now we're using food on some of the COVID dogs because they're doing so many repeated, things. And for reasons you guys understand far better than I do, we select for super high drive, and so that toy comes out and the pupils dilate, and they're and if that came out every time they alerted on the scent wheel, it's kind of game over.
Oh yeah.
So the food rewards are a little lower level, and they'll do it over and over again. So it's been really interesting to watch that process, how everybody's adjusted to lots of repeated sort of episodes, but for the most part we're toy rewards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this episode is going to be called "This Is Africa," but you guys, well, it's a thing, right? It's a cultural deal, spanning the entire continent. This is Africa. It's a pervasive, cultural. I don't want to call it an indifference, but it's just fucking something about that place. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just this is Africa, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about it, you're saying, wildlife. Most of the people over there, they grow up there. Obviously they're born, they grow up there. So lions and tigers and shit are not tigers, but and elephants and water buffalo and whatever, the big five that kill everybody. That's just a fact of life there. And so here, we don't deal with wildlife that really kills us in the United States, not like Australia or apparently Africa. So, when we say this is Africa, it's kind of one of those deals that we kind of assume that those problems are isolated to that continent. And, we're insulated here in our nice little, democracy, or somebody's going to correct me on that, here in the United States. But you guys have dogs working in the United States also. You said, what, 31 states? So
we don't have, those aren't our dogs, but
right.
But it's a cool story, and you guys will probably, and you should probably have somebody on from the CCOA, which is a new organization which we helped start. But we were working with the state of Washington, which Washington passed a law outlawing trafficking of wildlife, not just domestic wildlife, but also international. And so we worked with the Department of Fish and Wildlife there to help train a contraband dog who was doing trafficked species, elephant, rhino horn, shark fins, other stuff like that. And the handler was a detective named Lauren Wendt, and she was working with somebody named Jeff Milner from state of Indiana, who Jeff has started and helped train a whole bunch of state wildlife agency, canine programs. And the observation that they made, which is, I'm sure you guys see this all the time, is that the dogs these dog programs, they were isolated. They train a dog and then you get a handler and they're like, just go do your dog thing, and they were off by themselves. And so there wasn't a professional sort of network for them to interact. And she said, can we start bringing everybody together and talking about certification and even just the kind of stuff you guys talk about, like case law and updates to laws. And can we have an environment for that, for wildlife, detection, tracking, and all that stuff. And so we did the original meeting almost 2 years ago now, with I think it was 19 states back then, and now there are 31 states that have law enforcement dog programs for wildlife. So state agencies doing wildlife law enforcement, and so they're all their own dogs. These aren't our dogs at all. But what we do is we help convene the meeting. We help them, interact, and so it just became registered as a 501c6, a professional organization,
Right.
And like NACLAC and the associations that you guys sort of deal with, and they will eventually think about certifications and those sorts of things. I think it would be super cool if we could get the CCOA, is the Conservation Canine Officers Association. If we could get the U.S. CCOA, to create an international chapter, and then all the guys we work with, we've got a network of 200 dogs and handlers in Africa, and a growing network in Asia, and get all of those folks all working together, because you know how it is as soon as they start to interact and they like and trust each other, and they say, hey, this is what we're working on. What are you working on? What are you seeing? They start to share intelligence. They start to do other stuff. And then they're like, hey, we're catching guys smuggling saker falcons. Have you guys trained on falcons? And stuff like that. And so it's really cool, and it'll be neat to watch it as it all evolves and grows. Because, man, there's a lot of trafficking going on. Even from here. And one of the things that I learned, I didn't know this, is that we screen stuff coming into this country, but only the stuff that stays here. So we don't look at anything going out.
No.
So bear parts, turtles, ginseng. You want to ship stuff out? Go for it. Nobody's going to inspect it.
Dudes will kill you over ginseng. I'll tell you that.
Isn't that crazy?
Out west or out east, man, like West Virginia and Tennessee and Kentucky and shit. Yeah, they're super fucking. They are real,
it's valuable.
Like real serious about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So all of those things, and a lot of it's just happening. Like, the head of law enforcement for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was a guy named William Woody a little while ago, and he told a story about something called totoaba. Totoaba is the swim bladder from a chub that lives in the Gulf of Mexico.
What's a chub?
A chub.
I know what it is, but
it's a fish.
Okay, it's a fish. Okay,
it's
not what I was thinking.
Big species.
It's not
more beer.
Yeah, it's a chubber.
You're done.
Yeah. Anyway, so it is the closest relative to another species of fish that lives in central China. And that central Chinese species was believed to be beneficial for pregnant women. And pregnant women would eat the swim bladder from these central Chinese chub. And they were fished to commercial extinction. And interestingly, they were loaded with pollutants like mercury and stuff. So it was really a bad idea for pregnant women to be ingesting that stuff.
The fuck?
But they started, because they couldn't get them in China anymore, they started getting them from elsewhere. So they were getting them from the Gulf of Mexico. and they were netting them, and they were catching vaquita, these little dolphins, little small species of dolphin that were caught as bycatch. So not only were they fishing these totoaba to extinction, but they were also killing all sorts of dolphins along with it. And the vaquita is almost extinct as well. So they catch this guy coming across the border with these swim bladders, and they inspect it, and they're like, "What is this? I don't know." They knew it was something, but they didn't know what it was. So then they trail the guy, they follow him. He goes all the way up to Seattle, and they realize these swim bladders were selling for $10,000 each. And
fuck?
And he had over $1 million of swim bladders.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Shipping out. And this trade had been going on for years before anybody knew it. And so the crazy stuff that's used for medicine or food or flavoring or just prestige or whatever, who knows? There's all sorts of crazy different species that are being used. And, that's a slam dunk. It's an easy one for a dog, as long as we know to train a dog on it.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that's crazy.
So much of it's on the radar that we don't know. So
here we sit with
all the stuff they're doing
with COVID-19 with bat soup. So I guess it kind of makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So one of the missions you guys do that I want to talk about, since we've been talking about all the wildlife crime and stuff that I'm fascinated by, is the monitoring of elusive species. You want to talk about that and how dogs play a role in that? Sure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those species are carnivores, right? Because carnivores live at very low densities. And they, one of the ways they do that is by leaving little messages, either through urine or scat, or sometimes scratches, sometimes other stuff, but for other carnivores. And, here we are, we live with these carnivores ourselves, for 40,000 years or whatever, who are tuned into all of that stuff. And so the first monitoring projects were here in our part of the world. I live here in Montana. It was in Montana and up in British Columbia, a place called the Okanagan, working on grizzly bears. Back when there were only a few hundred grizzly bears living in the lower 48. And, a grizzly scat is big. It's a big pile. It's a slam dunk. I mean, it's an easy target for dogs, though they detected it sometimes, 100 meters or more. So we started on that. And then as we did more and more of that, we just got onto harder and harder species. So, some of the most difficult ones are, there's a lizard now that we work on a lot called a blunt-nosed leopard lizard that lives in Southern California. Their scats are like a little dry piece of rice.
Holy
looks
shit.
like. And detection distances for those are usually less than a meter. So it's real fine, detailed work, and, all the way from that to wolverines to lynx. And then we do a lot of, anything that's hard to find or hard to discriminate, and they're just really good at it. I'm speaking to the choir here. You guys know how that is. The challenge is to find good samples to train them on, to ask the right questions, and then they almost everything we've ever asked them to do, they have succeeded at.
So is the point of using them to verify that there are those, say, carnivores in that area, or because maybe you haven't seen one in a while, or what is the point?
Exactly. So sometimes it's that. So grizzly bears, for example, grizzlies, they can be very shy as they move into a new area. So here in our part of the world, like I live in Bozeman, I'm about an hour from Yellowstone Park, right? And grizzlies are now, that population is recovering and they're just moving into this area. And so almost always, they're here for a number of years before they get involved in a conflict event. Right. And then they maul somebody or they get in somebody's garage or they do something. And then there's a problem. Exactly. And then, like they say,
we had no idea.
Exactly. And what they say, a fed bear is a dead bear, right? Because once they get started, they're going to die, because people won't tolerate.
Right.
So it's far easier to prevent that. And so we've had dogs working in areas where we'll find the land manager will say, there are no grizzly bears here. And we'll find scats from 6 or 8 different individuals. who are living in that area. And then they say, holy shit, maybe we should get rid of these guys. And we say, hold on, you got 6 bears living on your property and they're not causing problems. Those bears are your best friend because they're mature bears who aren't causing problems. And the ones who cause problems tend to be juveniles and subordinates. And if you kill the mature territorial adults, then that's when the juveniles and the subordinates are going to come in, and then they do stupid stuff like attack sheep or your dogs or breaking into houses or whatever.
So they're like human juveniles and adults.
Exactly.
They do stupid shit. Exactly.
Bears and wolves, they do stupid. Yeah, they're good at stupid. So, that's one application, is helping people take preventive measures and say, you're doing the right stuff, avoiding conflict. And then another one, for example, under the Endangered Species Act, right, there's something called Section 7. So if you're going to disturb habitat for an endangered species, legally you have to monitor that population. Well, some of those species are really hard to count and hard to monitor. And, so we work in the largest solar farm in the world. It's in Southern California, working on kit fox, the species I mentioned earlier. They're very hard to count because they're shy. They don't come to camera traps. They don't step on track plates. One of the other ways people do them is spotlighting at night. And some species will look at a spotlight and other species won't. They're one of the ones, they don't look at it. They see the light, they go, they hide. And it's a scrubby, bushy environment. They're just incredibly hard to count. So, but, they're all shitting, right? They come above ground. And so you can find a lot of scats. And so we can count the population, identify individuals using the scats. And the cool thing about that story is they're doing great. A lot of people thought as soon as they start building, the population is going to crash or they're going to leave or whatever. And they don't mind. They're in a burrow underground during the day. When the construction's happening, they come up at night, they hunt kangaroo rats, they get a meal, they go back underground. So it's allowed that project to go forward. It's a multi-billion-dollar project going forward because you can count those animals. So those are the kinds of elusive species kind of things we do. And, we do snow leopard, we've done tigers in Siberia, we've done lion, leopard, cheetah, wild dog, all sorts of stuff like that.
I would imagine that's pretty valuable to a developer in Southern California when they say, oh, we want to develop, it's a multi-billion-dollar deal, but we've got a bunch of cat dogs out here that we can't displace and we need to know how many there are. So
you're not displacing shit.
Yeah. Not like special foxes. Yeah. I have a fox family that lives like literally right behind me up on the hill. They had a little litter or whatever you call it, kits. I don't know. There was a bunch of a bunch of baby foxes running around this spring, and we'll have some more because I saw them the other day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'll know when you get coyote because those fox will no longer be there.
Yeah, we don't get coyotes here. This is the hood. Right. We don't have coyotes in the hood.
So and then like in our part of the world, you get wolves and then the coyotes are out. So
yeah. Good. So everyone knows that all you conservationist guys are millionaires, right? You guys
exactly.
Make millions of dollars.
Yes. But guys are like Patagonia, right? Like Patagonia and fucking Arc'teryx and North Face. I mean, you guys are all like billion-dollar companies.
So what we have figured out through our travels around the country when we ask police dog handlers, how many of you guys listen to the podcast? And it's probably in the group of people in our classes are usually 30, less than half, I'd say, Ted, probably half, less than half, something like that. So we have 800,000 listeners in here, and more than half are not canine handlers. Right. But what we do have is some dog lovers and animal lover people.
Right.
And
they're all not from the United States. We have a large,
lot of people overseas.
So a lot.
They're very generous. So when we get an organization like yours here, we want to definitely ask, how can these folks help you?
Yes. Oh, you rock. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. And I will tell you in 2 ways. It's always nonprofits. They always say, make a donation. That's true. Money goes a long way in Africa. It goes a long way in Asia. It's great. So that's awesome. Making a donation is great. And our website's wd4c.org. I don't know if you guys do that through Patreon or if that's only for you guys or whatever, but
it'll be
that's great. That's wonderful.
No, it'll go in the show notes on iTunes and on Google Play too. So it'll go straight to people's phones. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very cool. So, that's one way. And it is, dogs they are so cost effective, and you can have a big impact So that's really nice. But another way, and part of the other reason that I wanted to join you guys is because you guys are plugged into the dog world. And one of the, I say we rescue our dogs, but some of them, a lot of them come from shelters, which, we don't rescue them. The shelter folks rescue them from whatever bad situation they might have been in or whatever. But another source of our dogs is before they go to the shelters, career change dogs. So we've got a number of dogs who were originally bred and trained to be bite dogs, but they just didn't have the enthusiasm, to bite, or we had a FEMA dog who didn't want to walk on rubble. She didn't like the concrete rubble, stuff like that. Which,
Right.
That's a deal breaker if you're a FEMA dog. For us, we can work around that. So one of the other ways is looking out for dogs, and good dogs that have great drive, but they've got that one thing that doesn't work for their particular line of work. Either they don't want to bite, or, we got some CBP dogs who, Customs and Border Protection, they wouldn't pick up the PVC pipe. They didn't like PVC, the hard thing in their mouths. So they washed them out, which, if you're training 200 dogs and you want to give them to lots of different handlers, you want them all to operate the same way, maybe that's a deal breaker for you. For us, a smaller organization with 40, 45 dogs, we can work around that. That's no big deal. So keeping an eye out for dogs and screening dogs. We have we put our screening criteria out there. They're online. Anybody can do it. Anybody can find a dog and let us know about it. That's great because it works well for us because we get great dogs, and it works well for the dogs and the shelters because, as you guys know, a lot of the dogs that folks like us are interested in, they don't belong in families. They don't belong in homes. And Mals have become sexy now. I have some friends, a friend who gave a Malinois puppy to his parents who were 78 and 82.
Why?
Needless to say,
why didn't you just give him COVID?
I mean,
what
like
the fuck?
Fuck, man.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So needless to say, that dog didn't last long in the household,
No
and
kidding.
so stuff like that, situations like that, we're keen to take those dogs and help them. And we're looking for dogs right now because, I need 2 more dogs for Zambia. We're, our pack is sort of aging here in this country. So that's another way to be able to help out and, spread the word. We're a little organization. We're here in Montana. It's, we're out in the sticks.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't know us. So those are other ways to help. So I appreciate you asking that question. Thank you.
When we're done with this episode, people talk, I have a dog for you in my kennel.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I got him for dual purpose work. He's got all the hunt drives, everything I like. He just wasn't about the bite life. Sometimes you get a dog when they travel overseas. They kind of just, he doesn't want to do it. Super sweet dog, real nice. Will work, do all the hunt stuff, but he's not about it. So we'll talk about it afterwards. My wife would love it if I gave you that dog. Not because she doesn't like the dog, because she loves animals. She would love anything to do with any part of this.
Yeah. Well, and you get to go on a road trip. Maybe come to Montana and see the facility.
There you
go. We're doing an HRD there in.
Oh, really?
Billings? Sometimes
summer,
late. Yeah. Ray texted us. That was one stipulation I had. I was like, I'm going to go in summer. I lived in Aspen for a while, and believe me, I do not want to go to Montana in the wintertime. I'm sure it's beautiful. I get it. I'll look at pictures, but
it's colder. It's colder up here.
It's colder.
Yeah.
It's colder. We're doing an HRD up there. One of the guys from Salt Lake, we were in Salt Lake City, and we had a handler from a town in southern Montana. I don't remember which one it was, but it was at our HRD in Salt Lake City, and they're bringing us out in, I want to say it's August. So
cool.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
And don't worry,
Billings in August. Yeah.
We will not say how awesome Montana is. That's every podcast of guys that moved to Montana. The Montana people are like, shut up.
Yeah,
it sucks here.
They're like, move to Texas.
Yeah.
Can't hunt. No good skiing.
Idaho, they can deal with it.
Yeah. So go to Idaho.
Yeah.
Or Utah.
Give us give us the website again. Give us social media. How people can check you guys out, man.
Oh, thank you. Website is wd4c.org. wd4c.org. And social media is on Instagram or Working Dogs for Conservation. Facebook, same, Facebook.com, Working Dogs for Conservation. Those are our big sort of outlets, and we're small. We're only 11 people, and we train a lot of other people and everything, and do everything. Almost everything we do is through partnerships. So it's great to connect with guys like you and all the people who listen to you guys, because you can get tapped out very quickly trying to do everything ourselves. So really, working in collaboration, it really allows us to do a whole lot more. So it's great.
So on Instagram, Working Dogs for FOR?
FOR, that's FOR. Yeah, Working Dogs for Conservation. Yeah.
Eric's
There it
pulling
is.
up right now to follow it. There he goes.
I
Yeah.
can see it on there.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
That's the guys. Yeah. And the 𝗔𝗡𝗄
Follow.
guys, the Serengeti guys, I think were one of the last posts. Yeah. Yeah.
And guys, they have 4,800 followers. That's ridiculous. Let's get them to $5,000 here real quick.
Oh, thank you.
I'll share all this
There you
post,
Yeah.
and we'll get all that stuff going, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
I got to tell you, this was awesome, dude. You should be
Yeah.
doing more podcasts if you don't.
Oh,
You're
show.
good. Like you're
Oh,
really
show.
good.
See, I've blown all my wad here. I've got all my good stuff I used on you guys. There's nothing left. Yeah.
No, you have other stories. Come on. I mean,
some
come
of them
on.
are even true. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You can get on the
Yeah.
Cleared Hot podcast and talk with old boy in Montana for 3 hours.
Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what
Andy,
you need? You need to get
Andy Strump,
Jeff Milner on here. Jeff Milner on here and get him to sniff quarters.
Snip.
He sniffs quarters. He does this thing where he'll sniff the last. He'll leave the room, and then he says, "Touch all four of them. Touch all of them.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll sniff the last. I'll tell you the last one you touched."
Oh, really?
Yeah, that guy's taken a lot of money from game wardens all over the country doing that. So you get him on, and then you can
Interesting
have him. Yeah, we'll do it on video. Yeah,
Yeah.
Millionaire from quarters.
Yeah.
there you go.
Oh,
It's a
sure.
lot of quarters to get there. Yeah.
So how about you, Ted? Where can you be found?
Torchlight K9, letter K number 9 on Instagram, Ted_Summers on Instagram, and of course on Facebook, Torchlight K9, with one word, so Torchlight, not spaced out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, we have Working Dog Radio, so working_dog_radio on Instagram. Also, same spelling on Facebook. What about you?
We're at HRD Please K9.
Oh, that one too.
And again, I'm always fascinated by this. My Instagram is Van K9, VANESS, letter K number 9, Van K9, and I'm floored by how many people follow the podcast and don't follow Ted and I's Instagram accounts.
Exactly.
It's so funny. We like you guys, just not individually. So
I can see that.
I get it.
They like the
Oh,
relationship.
and the YouTube. I mean, now we're recording, so this is
Yeah, man.
third or fourth episode,
Please.
right? So go to YouTube, like and subscribe, click the subscribe button, and then click the little bell next to it so it pings your phone when we upload the new video. So these are edited and stuff. So yeah, we're moving into that platform here quickly. So
Yeah, we put some
We'll
clips
push
up.
it out and share.
Yep.
We'll share with our little network too, because we're grateful. Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, Pete, you guys are awesome, man. I hopefully maybe we can talk again. And
Well, let me
when's your
know,
next
and
trip out?
Well, it all depends on COVID, but but we just got 2 handlers over to Serengeti and back, trainers, and so it's starting to open up. So
Cool,
yeah.
good. It should.
Yeah,
What
and let's
you're
be in
doing
touch
is
about that
important.
dog.
Oh yeah. As soon as we're done
yeah.
recording, you and I will talk about it
Cool.
here real quick.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool.
Excellent.
Thank
so
you guys. Appreciate it.
yeah, it's been an awesome episode. Next one's, we got 2 good ones coming up down the pipe for everyone. My buddy Mick Bonet from the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office is a man tracking,
tracker.
yeah, like a human tracking ninja. Never handled a dog, but he can probably give you a run for your money with your dog. And then we're doing somebody from Customs and Border that is one of their tracking and kind of trainer guys. That's going to be a really good episode. So we've got some stuff lined up to finish out the year and start out 2021, hopefully not to be a dumpster fire. So I'm super excited, but man, Pete, I appreciate it. This has been a great episode. I think everybody's going to love it. So everybody hit them up, wd4c.org. And if you have dogs that have washed from a dual purpose program and you need somewhere for them to go, let them know.
Reach
There
out.
you go.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Coppola.
All right.
Perfect.
Got
You
it,
got
Ted?
it.
Because you're going
All right.
to say it.
Oh, I'm doing the intro. Okay, cool. I can do it. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
All right. So we ready? Let's count to 5 and be quiet and stare at each other like weirdos, and then I'll start.
Okay.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. We've wanted to do one of these forever, and finding somebody that can talk about this stuff, one, intelligently, and two, kind of give us some info, has been, and we might have just lost him. Hey, Brian. Where'd he go? Is it Zoom?
You see that? Look at that.
What the fuck is that?
thank you.
That's
Climate
got to be
sun.
in China.
Gotta be.
That's got to be fucking China. They don't let the people do.
Yeah. It's the steepest section of the Great Wall of China. Look at that.
Shit. Nope. That's a whole lot of nope right there. Nope.
Somebody that's been with us since the beginning of this entire program has been Arnaud from ALM Equipment out in Vegas. Arnaud does a fantastic job making suits, tugs, and sleeves. One of our favorite things that we use at every HRD is the hidden sleeve from Arnaud, and I've got multiple suits, and so does Travis. We use them as a kennel all the time. ALMK9equipment.com is where you can find it. Be sure to use the discount code WD Radio for 10% off your first order.
Tripwire Operations Group, man, what a great group of guys. It's an internationally recognized leading provider of products, services, and training for federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and military units. Tripwire Operations Group is an ATF licensed explosive materials manufacturer, importer, exporter, and dealer with a wide range of explosive products to offer, including custom kits. These kits are great for detection canine imprinting, and they have 3 different kits to choose from. The use of all 3 kits combined creates a complete explosive threat package for canine teams. Be sure to check them out. If you go there to pick up your explosives, they will let you blow some crap up. Check them out at tripwireops.org.
Lastly, this music that you hear has been graciously granted to be used by us by Brother Deeg. He's a fantastic artist out of Louisiana. Guy does a magnificent job. He's been through Tulsa a couple times, and I've seen him live. Be sure to hit him up at brotherdeeg.net, DEGE.net, or go to Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever and download and buy CDs. But be sure to hit him up, buy some shirts, and support the guy. The guy does a fantastic job, and he's a privateer kind of like we are. So brotherdeeg.net, DEGE, hit him up. This episode and this entire series and this podcast is co-produced and co-owned by Alicia Brandt.